It started on a Tuesday, just a regular Tuesday in New York City, until it wasn't. At exactly 3:14 p.m. Eastern Time, the city went quiet. Not the usual kind of quiet you get in the dead of night, but a profound, absolute silence. Car horns died mid-honk. The roar of the subway vanished. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. People stopped in the middle of Times Square. Their conversations cut off, looking around in a shared state of confusion. Phones went dead. Radios, silent. Every single sound-producing device on the island of Manhattan just stopped. For 3 minutes and 14 seconds, an entire metropolis was plunged into an eerie, unnatural hush. You could hear your own heartbeat, the soft rustle of your clothes. It was terrifying and strangely beautiful all at once. People's faces were a mix of awe and panic. They looked at each other, mouths open, but no words came out. It was a shared experience that connected millions of strangers in a way nothing ever had before. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the sound came rushing back. A cacophony of noise, as if the city was taking a giant, collective gasp for air. Horns blared, alarms shrieked, and people started shouting, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it a solar flare, a massive EMP, a coordinated tech failure? The theories started flying immediately. Scientists were baffled. The government issued statements that said a lot of words but offered no real answers. They were investigating, of course, they were. But for those of us who lived through it, the Great Silence, as the media dubbed it, was more than just a technical glitch. It felt significant. It felt like a prelude to something. We just didn't know what. Life tried to return to normal. People went back to work. Tourists went back to taking pictures. But there was an undercurrent of anxiety, a feeling that we were all holding our breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then, exactly 1 week later, to the minute, it did. At 3:14 p.m., the sky above Central Park began to change. It wasn't a storm. The clouds didn't darken. Instead, the blue of the sky seemed to thin out. It was like looking at a fabric that was being stretched too far. A faint, shimmering line appeared, wavering like a heat haze on a summer road. But this was different. This line glowed with an internal, pearlescent light. It grew longer, wider, splitting the sky in two. It wasn't a crack. It was a seam, as if the very reality of our world was being This time, there was no silence. There were screams. People pointed, their phones held up to capture the impossible. Helicopters that scrambled to the scene kept a cautious distance, their rotors beating against the suddenly heavy air. The scene pulsed, a soft, rhythmic light emanating from within. It was mesmerizing. You couldn't look away. It felt ancient and impossibly advanced at the same time. The light grew brighter, more intense, until it was almost blinding. And then, from the heart of that celestial opening, a figure emerged. It wasn't an alien in the way we'd imagined from movies. There was no spaceship, no grotesque monster. It was a humanoid shape, but that's where the familiarity ended. It was clad head to toe in armor that seemed to be forged from solidified light and shadow. The surface of the armor wasn't static. It swirled with faint galactic patterns, nebulae and starfields moving across its chest and limbs. It had no visible joints, moving with a grace that defied its apparent mass. It just floated down, descending from the seam in the sky with a slow, deliberate purpose. It didn't fall, there was a controlled descent, as if gravity was a suggestion it could choose to ignore. As it neared the ground, landing softly in the middle of the great lawn, the seam in the sky began to close. The light receded, and the fabric of the sky stitched itself back together, leaving not a trace of the cosmic wound that had just been there. We were left with this being, this armored sentinel standing in the heart of New York City. It stood perfectly still, its head slowly surveying the cityscape. There were no visible eyes, just a smooth, featureless visor that reflected the panicked faces of the onlookers. What was it? A visitor, a conqueror, a protector? Its silence was more deafening than the citywide hush from the week before. It didn't make a sound, it just stood there, a statue of impossible technology and unknown intent. The military arrived. Of course, tanks rolled into the park, soldiers established a perimeter, their weapons trained on the silent figure. They shouted warnings, demands. The figure did not respond. It didn't even seem to acknowledge their presence. It simply stood, a monument to the moment our world changed forever. Its stillness was unnerving. You expected a blast of energy, a declaration of war, something. But there was nothing, just this powerful, patient presence. It felt like it was observing, learning, processing. The armor, on closer inspection through telephoto lenses, was unlike any material known to man. It didn't reflect light in a normal way. It seemed to absorb it and re-emit it in subtle, shifting colors. It was both beautiful and deeply intimidating. For hours, the standoff continued. A silent, armored being from another reality, surrounded by the might of human military, in the center of one of the world's greatest cities. Then, it moved. It wasn't a sudden or aggressive motion. It simply raised one hand. The gesture was slow, almost peaceful. The soldiers tensed, fingers on their triggers. But it wasn't an attack. The palm of its gauntlet opened, and from it, a small, intricate object materialized out of pure light. It hovered above its hand, a glowing sphere of complex, interlocking golden rings that spun in mesmerizing, counter-rotating patterns. The sphere pulsed with a gentle, warm light, and as it did, a feeling of calm seemed to wash over the immediate area. The tension in the air lessened. The panicked edge in people's minds softened. It wasn't a mind control, but more like a soothing presence. The figure then lowered its hand, and the sphere of light floated gently to the grass, where it remained, spinning and glowing. It was a gift, or a message, or a key. Nobody knew. Having delivered its silent offering, the figure turned, not towards the military, not towards the city, but towards the sky. It began to rise, slowly at first, then accelerating, streaking upwards like a reverse meteor. Within seconds, it was gone, vanished into the blue from which it came. It left behind a silent spinning artifact and a planet full of questions. The world held its breath. The arrival, now known as the Advent, became the single most significant event in human history. The sphere, which scientists dubbed the locus, defied all analysis. It emitted no radiation, had no discernible mass, and was impossible to touch. Any instrument or object that tried to make contact would simply stop a few inches away, held back by an invisible field. But its calming effect was undeniable. Crime rates in New York dropped. The general atmosphere of the city became less frantic, more cooperative. But the biggest question remained. Why? Why the silence? Why the spectacular arrival? And why leave? Was this a test? A warning? A greeting from a civilization so advanced that their simplest gesture was beyond our comprehension? The armored being became known as the Silent Sentinel. Its image was everywhere. People debated its motives endlessly. Some saw it as a divine messenger, a sign of hope. Others feared it was the scout for an impending invasion, its calm demeanor a tactic to lower our defenses. We are now living in the post-Advent world. The locus still spins in Central Park, now a protected global monument. People make pilgrimages to see it, to feel its calming aura. We look to the skies with a new sense of wonder, and a new sense of fear. We know we are not alone. That much is certain. The silence was a knock on the door. The Sentinel was the one who knocked. We don't know if it will return, or if others will follow. But humanity is united in a way it never has been before, bound by a shared mystery and an uncertain future. We are all waiting, watching the sky, wondering what comes next. The silence was broken, and our world will never be the same. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the mysteries of the universe, make sure to subscribe for more content like this.
Ik werk zo snel als het. Scans mag langer nog. Ja, ik zing is nog. Is die wo uit. Stuifen is dus aan de eerst zijn best heb nou. Of het niet ze hebben de when it is down is dan heb ik het. Wel of ze dat veel. Naast de roep if we not you. On is nou wat zo on is nesse. Hoort dan nog anders zo snel als het. Dus is dan bad. Nou laat dan hij wel nieuw. If is net zien. Nou was net zien dat ze axe de speel. Wrong en max de lief. Hij is het is nimmer goed gamble be. Na min ombord blir bättre för han. Ja, vår nästan är snäpp så ett sökvällen. Och när det så att den ingen vill han nu. Så snäffet där och väl att kasta han in med max. När chefningen näff med fax så är det så där. Ja, för nästa. Är ju samma av det så där oss mest. Helt så näs vi spöms det ska bli lupi. We're väl så nämnt det. Och nästan en asset så en mycket ngev det mig. När snärt mach gar neu så är säkert så misset att snav då är så sker Elvis som från styrka. In all det är så fel avna och väl rörlig kaskapset av snällaset av ja nämmer med chock så get but Mr. Powercom is nervsel mycket vis det så brave så där ordnat art boy in the stair mouth och band det nästan skaffingen max det så i för positionen upp kabla ja was es nu för vad ser med så gas nog gamla startet cash bot och nummer 9 startet det var så med såna sam och men så vända med shade där runt det stämmer det så landa låt det av sig väl att bara så snäst ifs er säger mig det nervös mycket finns så morgon så mycket när det är så en och väl rate perhaps the low with som er tøk for luften alpene, skaffe tangen ipsen eller asset nær hopfeldig. Mærkvis nummer fuel på det snitchen ab, nok så det, som er gassen i det. Og I steam server og alt stå på en girs. Jeg skal relaskende, så fløjløls, så jeg er snakket det. Jeg har ikke slåst op. Jeg er så slåst non, jeg er stille med slåst non. Som er spækket fedt, jeg er først når jeg er stedet vildt nivå. Vi need a win. Jeg ikke gør op, det sammer op, fake så vidt. Jeg er velkommen en nips. Nærmere så har jeg det spillet næste spil for Latveria siden. Næste du alle nede giffet. Så når jeg er vist med kalom op, og jeg skal nærmest så vidt. Når først nærmest så vidt med det kan happen. Når selv er en den næste. Jeg er ret i med det første hos mig smag for en liv. Det sådan. Skal mål næste det så bæfse. Så når jeg skal gøre smag, jeg ser om sammen naps det som er med lågen i kolles næk. Skal smag for evsngelke. Næste var bedre. Ja, leuk, verstaat je alle rechten, ik bought de kussen ooms, de morfne, en dat nog stiffen maakte. Ja, staan is net op weer op. Ze gestaan als een gift, het is net zo stoos. Of zie ik zo mooi, wel zo is het dit. Nou zeer weer missen. De schoon bezorgder en dat is net zo dit. Boomde, net. Zie dit is hier slow with an over is nessen. Hier stil in de mich verstaan met op de virus. Hier is de leier met een nummer van je de ma, snel als. Wie is niet voor net zo af. Ja, de mis heel bieden dat we fruit op zo. Lachen het vis. Wat hassen is niet meer. De boos miste. Ja, woman en is niet al geld voor dit. Namens nu een mooie rest en ik al nazo. Zo snel als dat verlasker van de scheps naar zorg nog allemaal. Ja, ze zorg. Je nul. Je vers bezoek ik al af. Ze zorg me shit. Hoe vaak zit ze? Je van zo weten. Je must. Oh, van sheriff kette. Je is niet hebben betaald bij de schepskoei. Je van nazo zijn laatste. Verf niet door wat nummer met het nummer noemen. Dat is heel misleid. Zijn zelf bij het schillen koos meestal naar weten dit. Een observant dit giffen. Zijn naam het. Zijn je dus wat shit. Ik heb een laatste maar neerst in de verwet. Als nummer op het schilbad zoals was. Knaap met het net oorsngat. Zo ik van. Twee jaar hier is de limit. Net niet aan je is de landgast overzacht met voor staatsen. Dat is zo'n laatste gem dit. Oh fuck you en verschaag alweer is in de ene vet om zo snel laatste. Als gaskerpe. Erg makkelijk. Als de zivve. Zo nou, ze kan nooit dus is chef geen achter de geld voor de zelf zelfs niet film zit. Ja, lopen ze voor nou het. Ik zie de sange zie wel stress. Maar het zie gevaar plotseling is de schoon bestaan net zo is net de maat zit. Nee, zit op fellow en niet zo dat het nu ook hem zag dat de eerste dan gewil. Dat is kat was dit jaar ze de kerbeffen. Dit is er geld. Zo gesnegen bij Axe en de missen. No, gevuld hem een heel vast genel. Maar gedeen is het. Oh, en dus zuurspuk in de tijd dat ze zo is de werkvissen. Dat is het waarschijnlijk zo en offen dit. Ze bakken willen wel ze de Axe en de missen maar van je nessen. Maar het is wel voorzichtig. Samen naar het de af dat zeer gedongen wim. Sneeuwslopen ze voor dat. Ze melden het zesde de zorg aan gewim. Zo je vast naar je lief bent. Ze de hap je alle knef de bloopste. Geen had ze zo aan mij was ze vast. National is al daar voor de listener versloof je besmiste de man hoe is dus net zo in de neiste rijden voor de stad ja schon een week zo in het snap succes door ben de ship zo het zie we maar van de naam bij de weer wanneer de alien en zo in snel maar geffen en het wel iets zelfs staat we gaan maar nee en helpt zo moest wel eens snel snel als jaar broek alle naast mes het snap deel besocht men snel loopt ja we kunnen nog is ja hem zo nee, dan maar van je schijnen met je al komt er vast. Slag missen. Je weet helemaal dat het snack en je diep dus weer red. Dat zit zo schoog gesprek niet dat is wel merks dat ze dus pakken. Hoe soft mee de spek is bij de nu vet. Het is niet op wie. Smeer zo het. Snel en zo het. Maar dat zit. Dan je hebt zo veel wat je snel je weer even vissen. Niet zo het. Erg kan zo het. Dus nee, ik zijn niet stips. Ja, ik maar lukken. Ja, dan zal ik gewoon als in het ook knel zit. Naar fit of zitten. Ja, maar als ik kan weer veel. Ik ben al een mis neffen. Af is sterk schreef zo met kerbaffen en ik wil wel zo weer. Maar net met mis ja, ik zit voor wilpen. Dat is niet. De kaarten dit smaken. Moots is zo weer. Eerst is neigen kracht voor nes van bij ik zit. Mij heeft niet zo vierst dat. Dit. En in met als die elke jong nou wil kasgen. Net. Als dus dat je dat niet heel. Verbangen door lo wil wat niet leven. Is de huizing hebben nergens gedaan zo het. Ze schrijft niet gest de kaart nou zero's. Go was kaart nou op die. Om dus naast de resterst vel. Zo en het zegt u. Het masses builer begalt af. Ik vind geslaft. Stel ook een gast dat zich net om zo. Het wat de idee met ze. Snel als sterker. De earth wil dus af zo de flap. Oh wit. Zorg voor is kijk het 7 wit. Snarly run the fuck up, so with all of this that's not yet shooting in the bucket. Both have both says now. Yeah, lady Ming Alfred out serious that I left gas this end of work. He made this hammer. I'll follow us at the zoo. And the passage that over the nest games now. Yes, my shit out so beaten. Here's smaller. I'll snow. I have psych with Gal. Now I guess to we this visit. So in vain the fucker. Have me sure make massive. I give the saying that's it such. Ned. Oh, for the having a thunder when it's near to Sneelim, the can gets near it's get ashes away. I makes no wind up in the first lamp. That's needed bullet. And I know all of a skimmer of the safe so be. Snow below of a speak is near to yeah, for it so we. So we will serve us at the Nahnara degree. Shahosh and I in those niche knobs of silver wash the mask in us, and the Cassidy's offness and a mere theft. Pots, such Nahnam vanilla in us, Alvin is of my soul in a silver. And the last, so idea that knows enough. And the sheaf and the get stash and it's not ringing. Fast acts in the shares of market. I hope not build him in the spot so deep. Therps that will have missed near when the beat. Shen have the bus of roll. What them the odds no hawk. The last spill is spat no effort for better. Scan for that in the stag week. They auch for Nacho shoe done. I auch now we just sit. I ask the seat may need no fear feel guys get up. So well it's not. Is this going there? Zush, the liquor, it's not as hard stick.